We're still not sure exactly how the Mets did what they did over the weekend, but they win the Subway Series to finish off a 5-1 homestand. Welcome back in another edition to Believe in the Mets pod. That is Jack McKessie. I am Chris Schubert here with you talking all things New York Mets. We were just mentioning it in the pre-show, Jack. We're not really exactly sure that it was real, what occurred over the weekend. But I'm looking at it. The Mets did win yesterday. They won the series, and they are playing some of their best baseball. How are you, my friend?
Chris, the vibes have never been higher. Like a 5-1 homestand, you come off the sweep of the Tigers, Yankees, one of your biggest tests of the season in terms of record, and you take 2 out of 3, including just a miraculous win in Game 3 of this series. Vibes are high.
Yeah, and are there still issues for this team to work out? Sure. I mean, Bo Bichette had one hit in the entire series. I worry a little bit about the configuration of their bullpen. There are things that need to get better if the Mets are going to fully complete this comeback, but I don't know how you woke up this morning, and we're recording this on Monday ahead of what is a 7-game week for the New York Mets. They will play every day this week. I don't know how you wake up this morning not feeling like this team told you over the weekend, we are not going to roll over. You are not going to knock us down and take us out in June. You are not going to knock us down and take us out in July. This team has fight. And I think that is what people were looking for. I know it's what I was looking for when they lost the 12 games in a row. Show that you still want it. Show that the fight is still there. And I think sweeping the Tigers, yes, that was a great little opening act to that. But what they did over the weekend, coming back twice on Saturday and Sunday in the face of the Clay Holmes news that we learned Friday night, to do that the way that they did it, I won't question this team's want anymore. They want it just as bad as we do, and they showed us the signs of it here over the weekend.
I mean, it's not even just over the weekend, Chris. Like, even the Tigers series beforehand, like the way that they battled back from deficits in each of those 3 games in that sweep of the Tigers, and then you have an excellent show of fight in especially the 3rd game of the series again, where like for the early part of the season and especially during that long losing streak, the thing that we kept coming back to was how many times did we see the Mets go down in the first, second, or third inning, 1-0, 2-0, and feel like the game was over because the team wasn't showing any sort of fight early on in the season. It felt like they were rolling over or they started pressing, X, Y, and Z happened, and anytime there was a deficit, there was no coming back. Now I feel exceptionally confident that the Mets are going to be able to come back. I told you in the 3rd game of that Tigers series, even after they go down 3-0 in the first inning because of Nolan McLean, giving up that home run, I felt confident that the Mets were going to somehow come back and win that game. And even in the 3rd game of this Yankee series, even when they trotted out Manaea and he gave up a few extra runs, I somehow still deep down had a feeling that the Mets were going to be able to do something. Even if it wasn't a full comeback, just make it a little bit more competitive because the late inning fight was so much more present in the last 2 series during this homestand. And it's very encouraging for what the rest of the season is going to look like.
Well, yeah, because we got examples of them fighting back, right? In our heads, we can be like, oh, yeah, they can come back. But you have to see it, right? You have to see the examples of it. And you saw it down multiple runs in all 3 games of the Tigers series. And then again, trailing in all 3 games of this Yankee series. I'll say this. I don't know if that's sustainable. I would much prefer the Mets to get off to hotter starts. I would much prefer this team that we've seen be incredibly streaky with the bats and a team that is still incredibly banged up in the hitting department. I don't know if they can make a living digging out of what's now a 6-game hole by playing this way every time. Like, I don't want them to do that tonight against Washington. I don't want them to do that when they go to Miami. Like, they've got to start getting in front and taking leads and being able to put some games on cruise control. But to have this skill set in your back pocket, and by the way, they won another extra innings game over the weekend, which was great to see. They're I think 5-4, and they played the most extra inning games in all of baseball. They got to start playing from ahead, but really good to see the comeback kids. They win their first game after trailing through 8 innings since the notorious Pete Alonso home run off of Devin Williams in the 2024 postseason. But yeah, all in all, a good weekend. Vibes are immaculate. Vibes are back. We called the vibes department last week. Get them on. They're on speed dial now. I called them after both games over the weekend. Before we break all of these games down individually, a couple of injury notes here coming from this series, but just in general. We'll start with the bad one, and that is the fractured fibula for Clay Holmes. That I know people keep saying that he could potentially pitch around August. I'll believe that when I see it, considering that it's a fractured bone. Now, he doesn't need surgery, so he just needs to kind of let it heal and sit. But they're talking, 6 to 8 weeks before he could even start a ramp up, and then he would need a spring training style ramp up. So that's another month. And I did the math. 8 weeks takes you to like July 11th, in that range. And then if we're talking another month and a half, you're talking the middle to end of August at best. And so at that point, what are you going to get? 3, 4 turns through the rotation for Clay Holmes. So listen, I would love to see Clay come back and finish off what was trending to be just a stellar season. But that just and by the way, like, what a weird injury to happen. He takes the comebacker off of his leg and then proceeds to just continue to pitch. And then
Right.
the Mets after the game go, oh yeah, he just fractured his fibula. Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
he just stayed in the game. It was incredibly gutsy from Clay, and you just feel for him. And you could tell this one really affected the team. Like, yes, Lindor getting hurt, Soto getting hurt earlier in the season, all of those things impacted this team. But Clay, for just whatever reason, whether it's just this was just the straw that broke the camel's back because it was just one too many, because Clay is like a leader for this team. It just felt like this one impacted the team differently, and he's going to miss a ton of time.
It just hurts that it feels like every time the Mets start to get a little bit of momentum, one way or another, something happens to kind of put a bad taste in your mouth. Like, even going back to Soto's injury at the beginning of the season, that came in the second game of a Giants series that they ended up winning 3 out of 4 games. But at the time, you're wondering, well, how long are the Mets going to be without Juan Soto? Now, at the end of the Tiger series, it was Francisco Alvarez's knee. Now, at the beginning of this Yankee series, it's Clay Holmes with his fibula. And I'm, frankly, Chris, tired of hearing the phrase 6 to 8 weeks, because I feel like I've heard that so many times in just the last month.
3, Lindor, Alvarez, and now Clay Holmes.
Yeah, and we're saying Polanco's week to week. It's just like, I think it's like you said, it's just so many injuries back to back to back. And luckily, the Mets have had guys stepping up and performing when they needed to bring up these replacements. I mean, until Ronnie Mauricio broke his thumb, just another injury issue. But like, it's frustrating that it feels like every bit of momentum feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it's not really anyone's fault. Like, it's just the injury bug has bitten the Mets in a really tough way this season so far.
Well, and that's why winning on Saturday and Sunday felt as good as it did, right? Like, yes, you beat the Yankees. Yes, you won the series. Yes, you kept your overall positive momentum going because you won your 4th series of your last 5. But I think what made the weekend so special is they had every excuse in the book after losing on Friday and then losing Clay Holmes to, just be like, this is 2009, right? This just ain't it for us. Like, we just don't have it this year. Like, we're underperforming. We're banged up. Every time we think we're gaining a little momentum, boom, another injury hits us. Like, they could have very easily rolled over. And I don't want to say you would have understood it, because the professionals, you want to see them, try to fight through it. But it would make sense, right? To just have that huge emotional letdown on Friday night and to just not be able to respond. But they did, and that's what makes it so encouraging. I don't know what the Mets are going to do with Holmes' spot in the rotation. Probably Tobias Myers stretched out as the 5th starter. I know that's kind of been thrown out there. I know everybody right now, because of how great A.J. Ewing did, they just want to rush to their favorite prospect site. They want to just type in a starting pitcher, and they want somebody to take that spot in the rotation. I don't think it'll be Jonathan. I don't think it'll be Jack Wenninger, who's been really good down in AAA. I don't think. Thornton is another candidate. Zach Thornton is somebody else who people have mentioned. But I think the Mets built this roster in the way that they did so that if this type of thing happened, they could go to a Tobias Myers. They could go to a Sean Manaea, although I don't think I need to see Sean Manaea start games for the New York Mets. I think I'm good. But Tobias Myers feels like the likely candidate.
Yeah, and then I guess we're also looking at how long it is before Kodai Senga comes back, although I don't know how many more Kodai Senga starts I could take at this point. You hope that the injury that he's gotten through has recovered enough so that he's better than he was outside of that first start this season, but Yeah, I don't think they're going to try to bring back Jonah Tong, who's had a tough start to his season in AAA. And then Jack Wenninger, I know you mentioned, but he, I think, just got pulled after 2 1/3 in his most recent start. So I don't think they're going to try to rush any prospects up. I think it's very similar to what we were saying, although they ended up calling up AJ Ewing and having him play. But it's a similar situation where it's, you don't want to force a guy into the rotation from AAA, one of your top prospects, and then demote him as soon as someone else is ready. If that's Senga, if that's Myers, if that's Manaea, whoever they want to stretch out. I think they have the guys on the active roster already with Myers and Manaea that they can maybe put them together end to end and make them like a 6 inning starter, like 3 innings from each guy, and they're kind of like a compound, bulk
What
starter.
what what are we? What are we? Captain America and the Avengers? We're just going to try to make a super starter? Like
I
what are
mean,
we doing
you
here?
gotta remake Clay Holmes in the aggregate, I guess, to quote Moneyball. But
Just
I agree with you. I don't think they're gonna try to make Tong or Wenninger the answer as the fifth starter.
the difference between the Ewing conversation and I think the young pitcher conversation that we can have is the Mets, when they got to the point where AJ Ewing was their best option, they had exhausted everything else, right? We
Yes,
had seen Andy Ibanez at bats. We had seen Austin Slater at bats. We're good. We've seen enough of that. With the
Tommy
Mets,
Pham. Lest we
oh,
forget.
my apologies to Tommy Pham, who I believe did not get a single hit in his tenure as a New York Met here in 2026. You had exhausted all of the other like major league depth options that you have. The pitching hasn't really done that yet, right? Yes, Christian Scott has come up, but in general, we haven't pulled the Sean and I, you're a starter again button. We haven't done the whole Tobias Myers. You're pretty good. You could be a starter. You were a starter back in a previous life. We're gonna make you a starter again too. Like they haven't pulled those ripcords yet, and so I just think we're gonna see that for a little bit before they make a big move like that. And you know what? Tobias Myers, I don't think is a bad option. Like Andy Ibanez and Austin Slater and Tommy Pham were bad options. Tobias Myers is not a bad option. Tobias Myers has been, outside of one bad outing in Colorado, has been relatively great this season. And so I think stretching him out and giving him a chance is a good thing. Now, the key word there is you got to stretch him out. And so he's not going to be able to give you length right away. And that's going to force Carlos Mendoza to manage a bullpen that is, at this current moment in time, not necessarily the most well-constructed thing in the world. So fascinating to see what they do there. They have Joey Gerber up right now as the extra man in that rotation, or in that bullpen, I should say, because they don't need another starter till later this week, but they'll probably make a move. Or if they keep it the way that it is and they just move Myers to the rotation, Carlos Mendoza is going to have to play some bullpen whack-a-mole here over the next couple of days to keep his options available. One other thing on the injury front before we break down these three games. Jorge Polanco is joining the Mets on this road trip. I don't know if that means he's close. I don't know if that means he is trending towards a return to the lineup for the Mets, but they have said that the Achilles stuff is not going to just go away. And so
Yeah.
they have to get it to a place where it is manageable and that Polanco can play through. Now, the way I interpret that is Jorge Polanco is not playing first base for the Mets the remainder of the season, that he is going to be primarily a DH. That is my read of that situation. But I don't even know if we're close to even entertaining that as a option, because they continue to just push out this timeline of when he needs to, when he's going to be able to come back, when he's going to show signs of progress, because every time they talk to him, there's something else with the Achilles that is acting up. And they've now basically come out and said, we just got to get this manageable to a point where he's comfortable playing. And that's a pain tolerance thing for him. It's a question of, can he hurt it even further? So I don't know if it's close, but him coming on the road trip to continue to do baseball activities is certainly somewhat of a positive sign. This isn't, the Jed Lowry where you just never hear from the guy again. Like, or you messaged me, what was it? I think on Friday, Jorge Polanco was taking BP, and you're like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to see you, Jorge.
So it was the wrist injury, right? That like was technically the thing that was too much, like
Yes.
the straw that broke the camel's back for Polanco.
The wrist is what actually placed him on the injured list. The Achilles stuff they were managing and kind of playing through, but it was
Right.
the wrist that ultimately sent him to the IL. They say the wrist is fine now at this point.
Okay, so like it seems like everything is on the Achilles, and I think that does point to signs of them just sticking Polanco at the DH spot. And I'm going through and I'm looking at who the Mets had DH in the series, and it was MJ Melendez and Austin Slater. Like I'm okay with having Jorge Polanco back, even if he's not 100%. Obviously, he's not going to give you anything on the base paths, but I prefer having that bat over the two that the Mets currently have at DH. And
Well,
Vientos
and
has been
I
serviceable.
was just gonna say you can't take Mark out of first base. He turned a pivotal 3-6-3 double play yesterday.
He's had a few really nice double plays in the Tiger series and now this one. He did have that play
I was just
against the
gonna say
Tigers where he fell
stumbled over
first
first base, but it's okay, Mark.
But like some excellent play at first base from Mark Vientos for a guy that is playing out of position. So like the Mets have a solution at first base. They have several if you want to include Brett Beatty in that conversation. And obviously they have a DH spot that can be opened. I think they've been trying to limit Juan Soto as well with his calf injury and having him DH every once in a while. But like you can split time there.
Yeah, he DH'd on Sunday. So Juan is at least getting, and I can look back at the last 6 lineups. Juan DH'd 3 of the last 6 games for the Mets. So they are certainly erring on the side of caution.
And I think that's also the ankle partly too from the Tiger series is why.
Well, the wrist has been a problem. And I know the Mets haven't really talked a lot about that, but he took a swing, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, and you could see him shaking out his wrist. Now, he didn't miss any time with it, but it definitely felt like something was up there with his wrist. And so I think you're already down. I don't need to do this, but you're already down Lindor, you're down Robert, you're down Alvarez, you're down Polanco. And so if DHing Juan Soto, 50% of the time right now helps him stay on the field, that's what the Mets are ultimately going to do, and you can understand why that's the place they get. Okay, I think that's everything on the injury front. Those are the 2 major updates. We're waiting on AJ Minter, who should be back relatively soon. That'll be a nice boost to a bullpen that needs some fresh arms out there. But other than that, that's kind of it. Francisco Lindor, it's still going to be a while. Nothing on Luis Robert, so we're just this is the group right now. The group that has won, 10 of their last 15. A group that just finished a 5-1 homestand. That's the group that's going to have to get it done. It did not start great for the Mets, Jack. They lost the first game 5-2 in this series. I know the focus on this one, obviously, now with hindsight, is Clay Holmes getting hurt and taking a 111 mile an hour comebacker off of his leg and then still pitching. I said this at the time, and I feel even better about it now. This is one of those games where you just kind of tip your cap and you say, hey, Cam Schlittler's one of the best young pitchers in baseball. He just had us tonight. Like, that's going to happen. Like, teams are going to have Cy Young candidates. Like, you kind of expected that to happen to the Mets on opening day against Paul Skeens, and you were just going to be like, yep, that's Paul Skeens for you. Right. Like, okay, we'll get you next time. The Mets were down early in this game. They trailed 3-0 after a bad third inning. And then, again, you're facing Cam Schlittler. Hard to do much against a guy who has a sub 1.5 ERA this season.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing throughout this game. I mean, it's frustrating to have your 3-game losing streak snapped after, the nice sweep of the Tigers.
3-game winning streak. You said losing streak.
I said losing streak.
Yes,
3-game winning streak.
Winning streak.
It's tough to have your 3-game winning streak snapped after sweeping the Tigers. But it didn't feel like the Mets were necessarily rolling over in this game. I think just Cam Schlittler, 9 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 hits, one being the Soto home run. Like, I think, like you said, you just kind of tip your cap to Schlittler there. We already talked about it. The Holmes injury, I think, was the bigger story of this game rather than, oh no, the Mets offense is putrid again and all of a sudden they stink.
Well, the thing that really hurt the Mets in this game was that third inning where Clay Holmes gets the first 2 outs and then proceeds to give up 4 straight 2-out hits. That's a killer. Like, that's the worst we've seen Clay pitch really so far this season. And you feel like, okay, giving up 1 run, okay, you can maybe understand it, but to allow the walls to kind of cave in there and to allow 3, it's a huge, because he was kind of rolling, mostly through the first 2 innings. He didn't have a clean 1-2-3 inning, but no damage in the first, no damage in the second, struck out 4 batters in the first 2 innings. Like, you felt like, yeah, this is going to be a pitcher's duel. Grab your snacks, sit down, settle in. Cam Schlittler, Clay Holmes gonna duel it out for 6+ innings. And that third inning just kind of, the wheels fell off and you just were kind of like, how did this happen? Like, he got the first 2 outs. All right, Rice gets a single. You're like, all right, 2-out hit, that's fine. And then Judge hit a single. You're like, okay, it's Judge. A single's okay. Like, if you feel like you won that at bat. And then Bellinger swings at a pitch like 12 feet out of the zone and is able to double it down the right field line. And you're just like, how did this happen? Like, yeah. How were they able to do this? And you look up, you're down 3-0 and 3 runs to Cam Schlittler. It might as well be 12 runs.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like also for Holmes, this reminded me a lot of his earlier starts last year when things started to fall apart. He started pitching out of the stretch, like things started to crumble quickly early in his starting career. And then I wonder how much mentally for him it's a thing about pitching against the Yankees specifically. Like once he gets into that whole mentally, I don't know what possibly could have happened that led to such like a unfortunate, I'll call it third inning. But I also want to pivot the conversation from the negativity here to also shout out one guy in particular. Austin Warren has been an incredible revelation for the Mets this season because he comes in the fifth inning here and gives the Mets 1 2/3. His ERA is down to 0.71, only one hit across his outing against the Yankees, which I think the guy is kind of an unsung hero in this bullpen right now.
Well, they had another outing in their bullpen that was massive, multiple innings. We'll get to that here in Game 2 of this series. The Mets beat the Yankees 6-3 in the second game. It was opener. It was everyone's favorite pitcher, yours and ours, Huascar Braziman, getting the start for the New York Mets. And he got 4 outs, and clearly that was the plan because he was cruising, and they just took him out of the game after the first 4 batters. So that was clearly the spot that they wanted to get David Peterson into the game. I want to talk about Petey first before we talk about how the Mets were able to get to Rodon and Luis Torrens working a great at bat and that huge third inning that the Mets put together to very quickly respond to the Yankees taking the lead. Peterson as a reliever, I'll use reliever in air quotes, as the bulk guy, is better than Peterson as a starter this season. Okay, that's objectively, statistically, that is true. His ERA in these bulk roles, these bulk outings, is a lot better than as a starter. That being said, this still isn't good enough from David Peterson. Like 4 innings is not enough as a bulk guy.
I agree. I mean,
now he struck out 8.
He should be giving at least 5 as a starter converted to a bulk guy.
And you want to know why I bring this up? Because it put the Mets in a bind late in this game. And now they got out of it thanks to just the massive stones of Luke Weaver, which we'll get to, trust me. I mean, just, boy, to do that in that spot is the relief outing of the year. Nothing's going to top that. But it then put them in a bind on Sunday because they just had used everybody over the first 2 days of this series. They had just used everybody. And they didn't have a day off. So they were just taxing this bullpen. And so then you needed Freddie Peralta to just go deep. And then that didn't happen. And then it was like, Sean Manaea, like it just, your turn. Like, and you're like, oh, game's over. They're waving the white flag. And I don't think that's what the Mets were doing. I think the Mets were just kind of like, we don't have any other options. Like this story you could have seen Saturday night after you saw the relievers they used in the first 2 games of the series. They needed Freddie to go deep, and the moment he didn't, it was kind of checkmate for Carlos Mendoza. So yeah, Petey has to give them more than 4 innings here, but he's been better. I mean, listen, with this setup, they're in more games that David Peterson pitches in than when he was a starter. So if that's the bar, if that's the floor that you're trying to clear, mission accomplished. But this goes back to the composition of the bullpen. They're basically punting on 1 day every week with Petey that they're going to have to use multiple arms because he's not starting. He's only going to go 4, maybe 5 innings. And so you're going to have to bridge the gap somehow. And it forces Mendy to manage the game before and the game after a little differently, and I don't know if that's a winning strategy.
That's the thing is, the Mets in the first 2 games of the series, out of I'm counting over here, I should have done this before time, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 relievers in the first 2 games. 4 of them, obviously not including Peterson and including Braziman, had to pitch multiple innings. And like that is not a winning story for a lot of these guys because it's not like it's the Manaeas and the Warrens or the Tobias Myerses of the world that are the only ones doing multiple innings. It's also Luke Weaver, Huascar Braziman. It was Austin Warren and Tobias Myers in the first game of the series. Like, you're starting to tax these arms, and when your bulk guy isn't giving you bulk and your starters aren't giving you that much length either, like, all that starts to add up. And we saw how the Mets last season with Reed Garrett and even Braziman to a point hit a wall and had to be demoted. Like, that starts to add up later in the season. And I think Well, I guess the problem is I don't know what the solution is because Peterson's not giving you the bulk. Peralta is kind of what he is as a 5+. You hope to get 6 innings out of him guy, and the Mets are eventually going to need to find fresh arms because I don't think this is going to be sustainable.
Ryan Lambert.
Correct.
That's the answer. That's the tweet. He's probably going to be up here pretty soon at some point to give this team a fresh arm. But yeah, I mean, in general, they're going to have to get more from their starters, and they're going to have to get more from Petey. Like if Brazoban opens and then Peterson gives you 6, that's a win, right? That is you winning with this strategy because you had to use one extra arm. You're into the 7th and 8th innings, and then you can go to your high leverage guys, and you kept that middle group of Craig Kimbrell, Tobias Myers, Austin Warren. You kept those guys fresh for the next day when you've got, Christian Scott on the mound or Clay Holmes on the mound or whatever the case may be, right? You can't burn relievers on both days. Like that's not the strategy working to its fullest. But the Mets are able to win this game in large part because of what they did in that 3rd inning against Carlos Rodon. Shout out to Luis Torrens working a 10-pitch at bat that did end in a strikeout, but the Mets had driven up Holmes' pitch count. And then Carson Benge 2-out double, Bo Bichette 2-out walk, Soto 2-out walk, and then
the wild pitch to end all wild pitches?
I think did I text you? I texted somebody. Carlos Rodon just throwing the ball all over the ballpark. I mean, he threw it behind, and then he threw it behind again on the same play.
Yes, yeah.
So he threw a wild pitch that even, think about this, and I can say this because the Mets won on Sunday and it didn't ultimately hurt them. Mark Vientos had a wild of an at-bat in the 9th inning on Sunday's game, just swinging at pitches all over the zone, okay?
Yes.
Mark Vientos didn't even offer at the wild pitch. That's how bad that was. I mean, he didn't even consider swinging the bat at that one. Yeah. And then that allows 2 runs to score, and then Vientos promptly grounds out. So that was clearly the only way the Mets were going to score in that inning. But they flipped the game on its head. They took a 2-1 lead. Petey kind of settled in after that. He had a 1-2-3 fourth. Brett Beatty left on left to double to score a run there with 2 outs in the 4th. And so after the Yankees got you for some 2-out runs on Friday, you respond with some 2-out runs on Saturday. And you then in the 5th add on a pair of runs with Mark Vientos hitting a double. You then get another Vientos RBI in the 7th. And then let's get to the 7th. Brooks Raley comes in. Now, Brooks Raley came in the 6th to finish out Petey's out.
Yes.
So we get to the 7th. Brooks Raley remains in the game. Now, you may be thinking, why is Brooks Raley facing Aaron Judge? Because that's exactly what I was thinking in the moment. But now that you're able to take a step back, how are the Mets going to get the 9 outs? Right. Because, yes, Luke Weaver ultimately gets 6 outs, but the Mets used Raley in the 6th. So they were going to have to ask somebody to get multiple outs, whether it was going to be Brooks Raley, whether it was going to be Luke Weaver, whether it was going to be Devin Williams. Like somebody was doing more than the normal 3. And so they must have felt like Brooks Raley against Judge is the better matchup. So Judge doubles. Carson Benge hops in a time machine, takes us back to 2009. Luis Castillo drops a ball in right field. And at that moment, you're thinking, here we go. Here we go. They lose on Friday. Clay Holmes gets hurt. They have a great response here, and they're just going to give it away. Like this is the inconsistent sloppiness that we've seen from the Mets so far this season. It's going to rue its ugly head at the worst possible time.
I mean, how many flashbacks have I had to that Luis Castillo pop up where it's like these
twice in one weekend.
We'll get to the Bichette one, but like a routine fly ball, and this is the second time in 2 series that Benge has had like a weird misplay in right field. So that's tough. And then a lot of people were hating on the Joe Davis call. We don't have to get into all of the national broadcast. I'm going to speak frankly here. I was also thinking, oh no, the Mets.
Right. Like in that moment, Joe Davis is supposed to be a voice for the fans and to tell a story. Like everybody at home, Yankees fans, Mets fans, if you were just a casual baseball observer, you're like, oh gosh, the Mets, they're just, oh, the poor Mets. Like that's what you're thinking. And so I actually didn't mind the call. And then all of a sudden I saw the uproar on Twitter and I was like, listen, we got to have thicker skin as Mets fans. Like this is just who we are. Is it like this happens to us? Like we just have to accept it. And by the way, it happened the next day. So this is just, You just have to accept it.
It's happened
So,
historically against the Yankees.
right. So Judge scores on Benge dropping the ball. You're thinking, oh no, here we go again. Then Brooks Raley, apparently just going to stay in the game, hits Paul Goldschmidt. Then we get a bunt hit from Jazz Chisholm. So now the bases are loaded. Carlos Mendoza walks out, puts the finger up, says, I'm going to Luke Weaver. Now, Luke Weaver's been great this year, right? Luke Weaver has been fantastic. John Schmaltz, I thought, made an excellent observation on the broadcast. You can't try to pitch in that spot like you need to throw up a zero, because then you're going to make a mistake and it's going to flip the entire game. You basically have to concede one. Like if you could get a double play there and trade a run for 2 outs, you would do it 100 out of 100 times. You would have traded 2 outs. It's 5-4. Erase 2 base runners. We got a runner at third. Now I just need a pop-up, a strikeout, a ground, anything. Sack fly that non-existent anymore. I would trade the run for 2 outs, right? And I was totally accepting of that scenario. Luke Weaver went out there. Just went right after Ahmed Rosario. Just went right after Trent Grisham. And then was able to get Anthony Volpe to ground out because apparently Anthony Volpe is Babe Ruth because the Mets tried to avoid him up until that point. In this spot, Luke Weaver went right after him and got him to ground out. I mean, it reminded me of, remember when Sean Manaea pitched against the Phillies in the 2024 postseason and he faced Harper and Schwarber in the top of the lineup and just worked out of that? That's what this felt like. Like, no business working out of this jam. Like, the Joe Davis call of, the Mets, that they don't get out of that.
Right.
Like, the Mets don't get out of that. Luke Weaver doesn't get out of that. And to do it one against your old team, right? That probably had to feel great. He's probably got extra adrenaline because of that. And so to be able to harness it, to strike out Rosario, to strike out Grisham, to get Volpe to ground out. I mean, it was just, man, it's the outing of the year. And boy, I'll run through a wall for Luke Weaver. The dude had the greatest post game of all time after the 12-game losing streak ended. And then he has this moment. He's here for another year. He's already had 2 like all-time moments in a short while. This was, and then, oh, by the way, he goes back out there because the Mets don't have any options to pitch the 8th inning. And he goes 1-2, not 1-2-3, because Wells singles. He gets look at this, a double play ball. And then Aaron Judge flies out the center. Just, man, incredible stuff.
Our YouTube audience would have seen when you mentioned Luke Weaver, I threw up my hands like the
absolute
cinema
Absolute cinema.
Because that's what it was. Like, I think if I had to boil Luke Weaver's outing down to one statistic, he threw 19 pitches over his 2 innings of work on Saturday. 17 were strikes. Like, he was just pummeling the zone, and Rosario wasn't able to get to him. Grisham wasn't able to get to him. And then to get that double play from Ben Rice, who was arguably the Yankees' hottest hitter coming into the series, like, that's just an outstanding performance by him in 2 innings of work to partially save the bullpen, but also like save the Mets bacon.
Yeah, and the Mets very quickly responded to that 7th inning by picking up the Vientos RBI ground out to add on an extra run, which was huge. And then in the 8th, just one real quick thing that I just want to talk about. I don't know how AJ Ewing was out on that stolen base.
No, I have no idea.
How is that not obstruction?
Some people were pointing out Lindor play from either earlier this year or last year where it was like the same. His foot was in front of the bag and they called the runner safe because of obstruction.
No,
and I don't understand.
That was the first year that they put the rule in place. I think it might have even been 24 where the rule was in place. But I think it was against Cincinnati, wasn't it? I think the play.
Yes, it was against Cincinnati.
Yeah, where they called that obstruction for having you can't have your foot or any part of your body blocking the base before you have gotten the baseball.
Right.
I mean, that was a clear-cut example of Ewing hits his foot, hits Volpe's foot, and then his foot rides up Volpe's leg.
Right.
But the initial contact happens before Volpe has the ball. And I'm stunned that Mendy didn't argue that. I'm stunned that the broadcast didn't bring it up, although this was a week where a broadcast didn't know that if a ball hits a net, it's still in play and it could be an inside the park home run. So maybe I should not put a lot of faith in broadcasters knowing all the rules. But I just don't know why it wasn't brought up at all. Like, I was very confused.
I agree, yeah.
And then Devin Williams comes in, strikes out Bellinger, gets Goldie to fly out, gets a Jazz ground out. Just 1, 2, 3, not a problem.
Easy
the
save.
Mets, The Mets respond, and they win the second game of this series, setting up a rubber match on Sunday. And boy, was this a rubber match.
I can't believe we waited till 35 minutes in to get into game 3.
Well, I'm trying a different format. I'm trying to,
I know, but it's like, this is incredible stuff.
The Mets, they started Freddie Peralta. He needed to give them length. He did not give them length.
He did not.
He went 5 innings. He walked 6. 3 separate times. He walked back-to-back hitters 3 separate times to get to his 6 walks. It was not very good. He threw, okay, do you have the numbers in front of you? I hope you don't.
I do not.
He threw 96 pitches. How many of them were strikes? I have the number. How many of them were strikes? He walked 6. I just told you this.
45?
You cheated. I'm convinced that you knew the number.
Look.
44 of them were strikes.
That's not good. That's not a winning formula. That is the opposite of what Luke Weaver did on Saturday.
51 balls of his 96 pitches in that start.
I mean, that's how you get no length from your starter. That's tough. That's tough. And that's what felt like early in this game. You're like, well, the Mets aren't going to win this one. Like,
Rice hits the homer in the third. He kind of gets to Freddie. But you're thinking, all right, okay, it's still 1-0. Like, Mets are fine. Like, you're thinking to yourself, Mets kind of been doing this all weekend, so it might as well just make it 3 for 3, right? They immediately respond with a Marcus Semien RBI double. How you doing? To tie the game. And then in the 6th inning, because Freddie Peralta is still out there trying to get through that frame, he, checking my notes here, walked the first 2 batters of the inning, and then they brought in Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea got a sacrifice bunt hit. So now we got guys everywhere. We hit Goldie with a pitch. Volpe single, because again, apparently Anthony Volpe's Babe Ruth. Tyrone Taylor overthrows the cutoff man, which allows the runner to move to third. By the way, should have challenged that. He was off the base. This is another bad one from the Mets this weekend. Then a sacrifice fly. And then, if you didn't enjoy being in 2009 enough, Bo Bichette said, hold my beer, I gotcha. I'm going to drop a pop-up in the outfield. That allowed another run to score. 5-1. 4-run inning. All could have been avoided.
I mean, that also probably should have been Tyrone Taylor's ball in left field.
Right. Tyrone overthrows the cutoff man. Probably should call off Bichette.
Yes. I mean, that felt like a disaster inning.
Because you have Goldie. You have 2 strikes on Goldie. You hit him in the toe. Volpe singles. Okay. Rosario hits the sacrifice fly. But on the Volpe hit, you probably should have had an out at third. Rosario sacrifice flies, then not a sacrifice fly. You have 2 outs. It changes how you pitch to Volpe. So it just was... I mean, the Mets created a disaster for themselves with 2 walks, a sacrifice bunt hit, and a hit by pitch. Like, if he doesn't hit Volpe, if they throw out the runner at third, if Rosario hits the same ball after they hit, none of that happens. And instead, the Mets are down 5-1 because of it. And they respond very quickly in the bottom of the 6th. Shout out Luis Torrens with a 2 RBI double to make it 5-3. So you're thinking, okay, the Mets have some fight. They're going to try to do this again. Sean Manaea gives up another run there in the 7th, so it's 6-3. Mets do nothing in the 7th. They do a whole lot of nothing in the 8th. They're down to their final out in the 9th. Benge singles to start the inning. Bichette singles to get his first hit of the series. Fielder's choice from Soto. You were hoping that was his big moment. Vientos swung out of his shoes. Did he see more than 3 pitches?
No,
it was 3 pitches. Okay, I just wanted to check. I thought in my head it was 3 pitches, but I just wanted to be sure.
Not competitive, yeah.
Down to their final out. Tyrone Taylor overthrew the cutoff man, should have called off Bichette, had 2 previous at-bats where he hit the ball really hard. It didn't get anywhere. By the way, Carlos Mendoza didn't manage this game very well either because he left Hayden Senger into bat in a big spot. What was that, in the 4th inning? Yes. Probably should have gone to Luis Torrens there. He went to him in the 5th. But Tyrone Taylor against David Bednar. He only needed to see one pitch because it was a meatball. It was a curveball right down the middle, and Tyrone Taylor, like he was Todd Frazier against the Nationals, hugging one inside the left field foul pole, and the Mets, down to their final out, tie the game at 6. They go to extras. Credit to the Mets, man. There's twice on this homestand, they have held the road team scoreless in extras. And you know how I feel about this, Jack. That should be an automatic win when you do that. And
Yes.
twice this week they've done it. They are 2 for 2 in doing that. And it was huge. Devin Williams, fire me up. Mark Vientos turning a 3-6-3 double play.
I have chills thinking about that Devin Williams outing, man. Like, unbelievably good.
Bad to let McMahon steal third uncontested. That was bad.
That's true. Bad to walk Volpe.
Bad to walk Volpe. But then you get potentially one of the worst hitters in the Yankees lineup to ground into a double play. That's like the third or fourth 3-6-3 that Mark's turned this week. Like, there's been a couple of them, and he's looked really smooth.
There's a 3-6-1.
There's a 3-6-1 that Weaver helped turn. That was on Saturday.
Yes.
But Mark has been so good, and that's what makes us able to laugh at him tripping over first base earlier this week in Detroit, is that he's been so good outside of like those weird plays. It's been great to see him with the bat. It's been great to see the defense, and he turned the 3-6-3 double play. Devin Williams was fired up. Mark Vientos was fired up. I was fired up. I mean, the adrenaline of Tyrone Taylor hits a home run off of David Bednar to tie the game to we just held the Yankees scoreless, and AJ Ewing puts down his first professional sacrifice. I mean, what a job.
I mean, AJ Ewing is just the guy, right? Like, he is that guy.
It's been a great week for AJ Ewing. He
gets on base 4 times earlier in the game, a hit and 3 walks. And then he has the first sacrifice bunt of his professional career, like not even just in the majors. He had never had a sacrifice bunt in his minor league career at all.
So we got first and third. They hit Terens with the pitch, so that loads the bases. They bring in the infield. So we've got 5 infielders in there. We've got 2 outfielders. And then in something that I could only describe as that's how the Mets would lose a game, they bring in the extra infielder, and 2 infielders collide. The 2 guys that are normally infielders in Volpe and Jazz, they collide. It didn't matter. I don't think they were getting Semien at home
think it was
anyway.
Schumann ran into Volpe, the
okay.
left fielder. But yes.
So Schumann ran into Volpe. You got two infielders colliding. Benge puts the ball in play, picks up his second walk-off, and here we are talking about the Mets taking 2 of 3 from the New York Yankees. Unbelievable.
I mean, we call that the oh no the Yankees play right there. That's a tough way to lose to the Mets after a rough first game of this series, and
they had the game in cruise control
through the second and third games.
They had Sunday in cruise control. Even when Terens hit the double, it's still 5-3.
Yeah, and how confident did you feel with Shamania pitching
Not at
all
all.
Those 4 innings? Not at all. So
and they're down to their last out.
Yeah, I think I saw someone point this out this morning on Twitter. Juan Soto stealing second base during that Mark Vientos at bat in the bottom of the 9th inning might have been a massive deal, because if you go back and you watch the broadcast, Soto, right before Bednar throws his pitch to Tyrone Taylor, Soto takes 3 steps back towards second base, and it looks like he looks into Bednar's glove to see what grip he's using. And I don't know if he signals to Taylor what the next pitch is going to be, but he very clearly, on second base, goes back and leans and looks at Bednar's glove and then takes his lead again. And I think, like, that kind of little gamesmanship going on, that's stuff like the Mets had not been doing earlier in the season. They had been not taking advantage of situations with other teams having errors. Like, this team has shown more fight in the last week than they had for the first 2 months of the season.
Well, you mentioned Soto stealing the base, but in general, the Mets used their speed a lot more in this series, right? They tried to, when Benge and Ewing were on, okay, let's turn a single or a walk or a hit by pitch into a double, right? Let's get a runner in scoring position. And when the Mets are shorthanded the way that they are right now, that's going to be their ticket, right? You've got Benge and Ewing who are going to get on base, right? I mean, AJ Ewing on Saturday, he went, 0 for 3? It was not a great day for AJ Ewing. He comes back the next day, gets on base in all 4 of his at-bats, and the only time he made an out was on purpose. Yeah. It was a purposeful out. It was by design. So he's been great. And so when you get those guys on base, use the speed. Beatty's got some speed, right? It's not Ewing or Benge speed, but he's got speed. Soto, we know, stole 30 bases last year. Like, the Mets have speed that they can utilize when they don't have Lindor, when they don't have Robert, when they don't have Polanco, when they don't have Alvarez, when they're missing their gap to gap power. You got to create gap to gap power in a different way where, all right, you're going to walk me. I'm going to make it like I hit a double into the gap because I'm going to steal second base. And they need to do that a lot more. And hopefully they start to implement that into their game plan, because it's a skill that they have. I mean, they've got two of the fastest guys in all of baseball in Benge and Ewing. I mean, Ewing may be the fastest guy in all of baseball.
He's so fast. They're recreating Francisco Alvarez and Francisco Lindor's gap to gap power in the aggregate by having these younger slap hitty guys get on base and then just steal like crazy.
The Mets sit at 20-26 after winning this series. It's a 5-1 homestand. They will now start a 7-game road trip. They do it tonight. It's a 4-game series against the Washington Nationals. Christian Scott, Jake Irvin is the scheduled matchup. They have Nolan McLean listed as the Tuesday starter. Not entirely sure he's going to start Tuesday or Wednesday, but we'll just read it the way that it is right now. Nolan McLean against Foster Griffin, Tobias Myers against Zach Littell, and then David Peterson against Cade Cavalli. And I will go back in the time machine to the last time that the Mets played the Nationals, and I said, hey, Zach Littell and Cade Cavalli, these guys have high ERAs. Get after them.
Yeah.
That's what the Mets need to do here against
I feel
Washington.
more confident about them doing it now, yeah.
The Nationals sit at 23-24 on the season. I mean, this is a team that can hit. They're top 10 in a lot of stuff across the board, but where they struggle, they're 29th in starters ERA. They're 26th in relief pitching ERA. They give up a ton of home runs, both their starters and their relievers. 29th in home runs per nine amongst starters, 28th in home runs per nine amongst relievers. Like, this is a team you can get after. You can score on them, and the Mets have been doing a lot of scoring, averaging over 6 runs a game here on this homestand. So they should go to Washington, keep the good times rolling, win another series. And if, by the way, you win this series, you take 3 of 4, you're 3 games below 500.
Be pretty good. I am looking at the pitching matchups, Chris. I'm a little bit concerned about how the bullpen is going to be looking at the end of just this series.
You got Scott,
who hasn't given you 5 innings yet. McLean, who you have to hope pitches a gem. Myers is listed right there as a starter. He's not giving you more than 3 innings, I don't think. And then you're going to have a opener in front of David Peterson in the finale. So, and no off day in between the Yankee series and this series. No off day after this series before the Marlins series. Someone's going to have to step up and pitch really well from the rotation.
Well, McLean had a bad outing his last time out and went 7 innings. So if he gives you that, I mean, if Christian Scott could give you 6, would you take it?
100%.
Yeah, I think I would take 6 from Christian Scott. So
even if it's 6, like not fully quality, like he gives up 3-4 runs, but it gives you the length, like that's huge, especially against a Nats pitching rotation or pitching staff that you can score some runs against.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that would be great is if you could, like, tonight, just put up a crooked number early and give Scott, like, some comfort, and he feels good to just go out there and attack, right? That would be the thing to do. But yeah, I mean, the Mets have an opportunity here. I mean, I don't know if it was Mets fans or if it was Phillies fans trolling or baseball fans trolling, but people were pointing out that the Phillies are already back to, 500 and above 500, and they fired their manager, and the Mets didn't fire Carlos Mendoza, and here they sit. I don't see anybody complaining about the Mets deciding to do what they did by sticking with Mendy, because they've played some of their best baseball since the decision to stick with him, on that road trip. So
I've also heard very little about how Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, and Brandon Nimmo are doing.
You know what? It's a great observation by you. I have not. Let me do a quick, because I'm now this guy. I wasn't going to try to be this guy this year, but let me just do a quick update. Remember this number for me. Mark Vientos' OPS here so far in 2026. Let me just do a quick refresh to make sure the numbers are 100% accurate here. He has a 703 OPS. So I'm going to go Baltimore here real quick. 703, Pete Alonso, 2026 stats. Pete Alonso has a 712 OPS so far for Baltimore. Not hearing a lot about.
It's very, very quiet suddenly. I haven't seen a Pete Alonso next to Mark Vientos baseball reference picture in a long time.
I've seen some Mets fans do it. I've seen some Mark Vientos fans do it. Kind of be like, just checking. Just want to see where we're all at here.
By the way, Marcus Semien is one of the Mets' best hitters with runners in scoring position also. So don't know how Brandon Nimmo has been doing with that specifically, but
And by the way, the defensive metrics for Simeon aren't very good, but I just feel like anytime a ball's hitting that direction, I kind of just automatically go down to my scorecard and I put down a 4-3 because I just assume he's going to get to it. Like he's been so reliable there. He's played every game, by the way,
yes,
which
big.
which is saying something since the Mets have had,
A
400
lot of people not play
400
every game.
injuries so far to start the year. That's going to do it for us here. Another edition of the Believe in Mets pod. Hope you enjoyed the different way that we broke down this series. We had some fun doing this way. We'll do it again here. Probably Friday is when you'll get the episode recapping the Washington series. No days off for the Mets. No days off here for us on the Believe in Mets pod. If you are new here, please rate, review, subscribe to the pod wherever you are listening to us. If you want to watch the show, you can do so over on our YouTube channel. Just search Jack McKessie, McKessy, where you can help us the march to 250 subscribers before the All-Star break. You can help be a part of it. And if you're already a part of it, get some friends to be a part of it. Get some family members to be a part of it as we march on here during the season. The Mets, big series win. 2 comebacks over the weekend against the Yankees. Now it is a 7-game road trip against some NL East foes. This feels like a week that could really change the season for the Mets. If they keep the momentum rolling, it could be a fun next couple of months here for the Mets if they're able to put this together. We're back to break it all down on Friday. As always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.